Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's presentation of how your customers can thrive in a down economy. My name is Don Grease. I am an account manager here at Lifeboat Distribution and a Quest product champion. We are really delighted today to present to you great software solutions from Quest that will help your IT customers meet the challenges presented by today's economic climate and help you to grow your business and thrive in spite of the current conditions we are all facing. We are very privileged today to have as our panelist Carol Fawcett, Quest Software's Vice President of Global Information Services. We thank you all for joining us today. We hope you find this presentation not only helpful, but inspiring. I should tell you that as we go through the presentation, feel free to enter questions in the chat area of the WebEx screen. At the end of the presentation, we will answer as many questions as we can, as long as time permits. So without further ado from my part, I will now turn the presentation over to Carol.
Great. Thanks so much, Don. I appreciate the introduction. Today what we'd really like to do is just really talk about Quest Software's products and how they can help your customers thrive in a very challenging economic environment, one that really no one knows where it's going to end up or when it will recover. So certainly we want to talk about how the Quest products really can help your customers. Let's just move right on to the next slide, which is a new one for me. Let's see. There's the contact information.
Just hold on, Carol.
Okay. We're having pop slides, which is always fun during a presentation. There we go. Okay. Now we're back into something I actually am recognizing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Quest Software real quick. Here at Quest, we've been developing enterprise software solutions for just a little over 20 years now. We have a little over 3,300 employees worldwide and hundreds of partners in our partner program just like you. What I'd like to do is use this time today to explore how you can help your customers get more out of their most valued investments, not only in their data center, but also in their applications, and then finally the resources that are utilized to enhance and run those valued applications. There'll be time for questions, as Don mentioned, but I do encourage an open discussion. You've got your little chat window there, so you can go ahead and enter in questions. If we run out of time, please feel free to contact your Lifeboat representative, and we'll work with them to make sure that you get all the examples that you need to help sell product that much better. Today's economic challenges are everywhere, both in our personal and our business lives. And in business, as the economic challenges hit us and budgets are held to where either they were last year or even put lower, some things have not changed. What's increasing, of course, is obvious. The regulations, compliance, auditing needs, security, that just continues to raise up. When you think about the hackers out there, they're certainly not slowing down. When the auditors come in twice a year, they only want to see more and more proof that what they pointed out last year is now being addressed this year. So any mitigating factors that you may have called out in the previous year's audit, they want to know are now being addressed this year, and really they want to see it automated. They don't want to see a bunch of manual efforts around that. What's really staying the same is the user's expectations. The users still expect to have, the reality is, 100% availability, the top performing applications that they can get their hands on, and their expectations are extremely high as they've always been. And again, as I mentioned, the only thing really decreasing is the budgets and possibly the resources. Not only headcount, we're always challenged to qualify the headcount we do have, but even now on the hardware side. So as each new purchase request comes through, we're really being challenged to say, do you really need that piece of hardware? Can it be virtualized? How do you take it down in size? How do you get the cost down? So in all areas, when you talk about resources, we're definitely being challenged today. You know, it isn't where you can open up any kind of article or any kind of newspaper or any kind of trade magazine that you don't see one of these kind of articles hitting you in the face. You know, it's everywhere that the economy's down, CIOs and IT managers, the technology industry in general is being challenged to cut costs yet increase productivity. It's a real dichotomy when you think about it. They oppose each other, and it's something that as IT organizations face, they struggle with, how do I get more out of what I already own? So the challenge is really obvious to IT organizations. You know, we have to focus still, as we always have, on the business and prepare for their future. We have to plan the long term but execute on the short term. Everyone knows that we can't have a project that goes over 6 months, because who knows where we will be after 6 months, either in the economy or even just in the business, and that's always been in our world. The thing that is being challenged these days, though, with projects is they want to know that we have solid and measurable ROI attached to each one of those projects. So it's no longer where you can simply say, oh, I'm going to increase productivity and decrease costs. Now it's really, well, where are you going to increase productivity? And what headcount is going to be impacted? And what kind of dollars are you going to save in what time frame? And then they come back and they want to see proof of it. So not only are the projects under high scrutiny going in, but they're also under high scrutiny coming back out. And they want to see that progress and those key performance metrics being hit time and time after the projects have actually gone live. They also, as we've talked about a little already, they want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our resources. They want to make sure we're getting the most out of our vendors. Are we getting all the information that we can from them? Are we utilizing them to the fullest? Relationships really are the biggest key these days. I have about 6 vendors that I work very closely with. They're trusted. I've known them for years. And what makes them so trusted is they have, to some degree, my world in their mind as well. So if my team goes out and is thinking about overbuying, they're in my office to say, I don't think you need something that big. I think you could go with this size instead. You don't need this many licenses. Instead, if you virtualize, you'd be able to cut down your licenses. It's those kind of relationships that I've built that I can trust to come to me and help me make sure that I'm getting the most out of what I own, both in hardware as well as in software, and then finally with the headcount that I have. Meeting compliance objectives and making sure that I'm doing this in a cost-effective way is another key objective of ours in the IT organization. We want to make sure that we're finding tools and applications that are not just for compliance, but have a dual role that can also be used in the operations world as well. And then, of course, the key to all of this and reducing down the amount of dollars spent on operational activities so that we can focus on the business is through automation. Never can say that enough. You know, automate the time-consuming, the mundane, the repetitive tasks that are done today that take away from truly enhancing the business and working on those key projects. Automation comes in many flavors, not only within the IT organization, but also through self-service tools where you're actually giving it out to the end user so that they can do certain things that they're already accustomed doing in their private life, here in their corporate life. And then, of course, as you know, Quest, the way we have grown through so many acquisitions, we want to make sure that those companies that are growing just like us, and you're seeing that across the board in the industry with consolidations, mergers taking place, we want to make sure that we handle those newly acquired with great speed and the least amount of IT interruption as possible. So let's go over to where Quest, and I'm going to talk a lot about the IT internal processes here at Quest in hopes to give you some ideas on how you can approach some of your customers with this. Here at Quest, we heavily use Active Role Server for the provisioning of new employees as well as throughout their tenure. What's so wonderful about ARS is that we have attached it to our HR environment so that the HR database now becomes the single source of record. So the minute that somebody is entered into our HR system, or they change departments, they change names, whatever the case may be, ARS is out there watching that HR database every 10 minutes, pulling those changes that have taken place, and then reflecting those changes automatically inside of AD, inside of email, at the file share level, or even with applications. It's all done through the automation process, which has removed those activities from the IT organization. You know, what's so great about ARS is it has many different roles. The provisioning of employees is such a key one for us, because when you think about bringing on a new employee, that can take anywhere up to 4 up to 6 hours at the end of the day. And think of how many people you're actually interrupting in order to bring in a new employee. Not only on the IS side with the DBAs and perhaps the sysadmins and application developer to add a user to the application itself, file shares to make sure they're put in the right security group, an email, an exchange person, an AD administrator. You know, you can go down that path and really see how many people are impacted. We're even taking it one step further now and attaching it to our voice system so that the person is automatically assigned a phone number through the HR system, and that automatically flows through so the person setting up the phone knows exactly how to set that phone up and put that IP phone on the desk where that person is going to report on their first day. So not only is it helping IT organizations and freeing up those 6 to 8 people I just mentioned, but it's also helping the HR folks, because now they're working on their standardized process. All they know is they have to go into their HR system and put or change that employee inside their own database that they're already accustomed using. ARS will take care of the rest. No more do emails need to go back and forth between HR and IS for notifications. Instead, they simply make that change in HR and continue on with their daily job. So ARS is just one of those sweetheart stories where automation plays heavily in reducing down the amount of work, not only on the business side, but also on IT. The other thing that ARS really does for us is it provides that granular delegation, allowing us to give security rights to the appropriate skill levels. So perhaps you'd like a help desk person, for example, to be able to go in and change a phone number, or some of the least unsecured things that they can possibly do, versus a sysadmin that would actually be able to change rights of a group. You wouldn't want a help desk person because generally they're junior and just coming into the organization to be able to make those rights kind of changes or add new groups. So you're giving the right privileges at the right skill level to each individual, which also helps protect you. I know when ARS first came in, you know, in our environment, we had about 60 folks that had guru rights, if you will, system admin rights. At the time, we only had about 65 individuals inside of IS. So you can just imagine that everyone pretty much had the system admin password and were going in and making changes. Not only were they going in and making changes, but they were always all going in under the sysadmin login, so there was no way to really say who made the last change. Using ARS, you've now flipped that model and attached a person to an execution, to a command. So now you can actually see who made that last change and find out why that last change was made, perhaps erroneously. I don't ever believe that anyone inside of IS does anything malicious, because it's, after all, them who have to get up at 2 in the morning to correct it when the day is done. So certainly I think mistakes get made, and isn't it wonderful that we can quickly look at it, see who made the mistake, and make sure that that mistake doesn't happen again. So just a great tool that gives us an all-around security as well as helps automate our world. Thinking further about automating IT, we go over to the Toad solution, which is just a great solution which allows the automation for development and tuning processes surrounding a database, as well as the application code itself. You know, Toad is a tool which really helps simplify database administration tasks, making the database development faster and easier for all levels of DBAs. So it gives those suggestions to the junior and intermediate DBAs, allowing the seniors to focus on what they should be focusing on, which is the more complex activities surrounding a database. Gives the juniors and intermediates the ability to work on their own instead of having to interrupt that senior. Excuse me. It also allows the application developers to tune most of their own code before it goes into the production environment. Again, helping the DBAs to stay focused on what they should be doing instead of tuning code that comes in, that gets checked in, and before it goes into production. It has a wonderful UI and a workflow engine. Development and change management is made easier for those developers as well, and even including the management team themselves who have to approve some of those changes that are about to go in. Here at Quest, when I went over to the Oracle development team, I asked them, how much do you think Toad actually saves you in a day? And one of my most senior developers who you think would have the least amount of time saved, I was thinking he was going to say, yeah, 15 to 20 minutes, Carol. He turns around and he says, so anywhere between 2 and 4 hours a day. It saves me in being able to bring up multiple windows at a time, seeing the data as it actually changes, allowing me to quickly move through some of my testing. Just think if you could get 2 to 4 hours a day back in your time, in your day, think of how much more you could get done. And for the IT organization, it gives us that much more time to focus on the business applications and enhancing those instead of, again, those mundane and repetitive tasks. We even took Toad one step further and provided it out to some of our subject matter experts out in the business community, making their world easier as well. Now they don't have to call into IT to get a simple extract done so that they can put it down into an Excel spreadsheet. Instead, those super users can go ahead and do that extract themselves. We attach them to a reporting instance so we don't ever have to worry about any accidental changes being made. In addition, with Toad, we're able to secure them so that they cannot update the database. They can only read and pull from it. So again, it's a productivity tool not only for IT, but also for the business end. Let's talk a little bit more about making that business user that much more effective with tools that provide them with self-service like Quest Password Manager. When you think about it, out in our private lives, we've been able to change passwords to bank accounts, go in and look at our E-Trade accounts, and be able to change those passwords on a dime by simply answering some basic questions. Mother's maiden name, what school did you go to, favorite pet's name. Yet that's always eluded us in the corporate world. In the corporate world, we've always had to call into a help desk person who has to worry whether that person is still actually gainfully employed by Quest or perhaps is a disgruntled employee who was just termed 5 minutes ago and now is trying to get back into their system to either steal contents or steal development code. So it put an extremely heavy load on a help desk person. And making them feel as if they've almost got to contact the person's manager to find out whether that person still works here or not. So what Quest did is it turned it around and said, why don't we go ahead and provide that functionality to our corporate business users and allow them to change their own passwords from outside the network where it's most secure. Not only will we allow them to change it, but we'll go ahead and allow them to enter just their simplest of the simplest of security questions to validate that it is really them. When we looked at the number of help desk tickets that we were getting to reset passwords, and it isn't just a network password, keep in mind that it's also passwords to, in our world, Oracle expense reporting, for example, or the Oracle financial applications, Siebel, Clarify, support link, email. You think of all the different applications that have individual passwords that people have to remember. On average, I would say that people probably have at least 8 to 10 different passwords in their heads at all times. Now we've made it so that you can change those passwords on a dime to get into the AD environment. And again, that saved us anywhere between 30 and 50% of the calls that were coming in. It took our calls down by that level, allowing us to actually take a help desk person between Password Manager and ARS. We were actually able to take a help desk person and redeploy them to an area that really needed help in our world, which was the purchasing environment. So we made them a purchasing agent. So what a great story of hard ROI, showing that by implementing these two tools, we were actually able to move over someone and deploy them into another area. Not to mention with Password Manager, it's a great story for your auditors that come in because it shows how the environment is secured. Both Password Manager and ARS provide the auditors with the automated functionality to give them rest that no one's hands are in this. We don't have to worry that people are in the system that should not be, because as long as the HR system is correct, which is our source of record, we know that that's correct, that AD environment is also correct. And once they're in AD using Password Manager, we don't have to worry that we're accidentally giving access to anyone, but instead only providing access to those folks that are working for Quest. Looking back in the IS environment a little bit, you know, when you think of the passwords, think of also how many different environments that your system admins have to deal with. I know in our data center we have anywhere between 300 and 500 different servers in our environment, between Windows and Linux and the different mainframes. We've got numerous servers that sit out there with individual passwords into each one of those boxes. The problem with that, of course, is that with each one of those boxes, they have their own access control list listed right there on that system. So now if I had, let's just say on average, an SA usually has to tackle somewhere between 35 and 50 servers. They have to manage it, patch it, make sure it's up and running. That's 35 to 50 different passwords they would have to remember, or all set them the same, which would be a security risk. With a tool like Quest Authentication Services, it allows us to take those access control lists and remove them from the boxes themselves. So it separates the box away from the actual system admin. Instead, it raises the system admin up and utilizes a database that is already secured, compliant, and validated by your auditors, and that would be Active Directory. So you raise those system admins up and place them into a group that now lets the actual server itself know someone coming in, if they are able to get into AD, which obviously if they're an employee they can, they now are associated with a group, and that group has the security rights to go down onto the server itself and perhaps read and write, or actually make modifications to that server's environment. So again, it's a great story around making the IT team more productive by utilizing something that's already been made compliant and audited, that being AD. On the other side of the house, of course, you have the Quest management extensions, which again is out there extending the capabilities of the Microsoft System Center family, which, as we all know, is out there in all of our environments and all of our data centers. You can see there it enables the System Center to be that single end-to-end platform for managing both desktops and the servers and devices that are attached to AD. So great story of using tools like these to do more than one thing and utilize a database that's already been secured. Let's go on to slide 11 there. We're talking a lot about the acquisitions, the mergers, and how we make those more efficient at Quest. I mean, one of the biggest things that a company faces when they acquire or merge with another company is not so much the technical ramifications as the cultural ramifications. You have new folks now that have come into the environment, they're part of another organization, and there's a lot of insecurity around that. You know, will I remain on? Who are my peers? Who in other departments like mine will I be working with? How do I get in touch with them? What's their email address? What's their phone number? Who's their manager? Those kind of questions that sit in someone's mind of how do I get in contact with them so that I can get on the road and on the path of being a Quest employee. Collaboration Services is one of those tools that comes in and helps do just that without overtaxing an IT environment or causing them to go out and overbuy hardware or make quick decisions that in the end may be poor decisions. So using Collaboration Services, it actually allows us to securely synchronize two AD environments without actually integrating them. So what happens is once Collaboration Services is loaded in both environments and is recognized by both environments, their global access lists, their GALs, are now updated with the others' address lists, and it would appear that they've been integrated because now they can see each other's emails as well as any other information that you would like to provide for them. Here at Quest, not only do they see their email, but they also see their phone numbers, as well as the management, as well as the organization that each one of those people belong to. So from a personal level, they actually feel like now they've been integrated and they're part of Quest. This gives the IS organization time to really sit back and say, how do we want to migrate? What do their username formats look like versus our username formats? Once they work out the details of that, they then move on to what will we have to do hardware-wise? Will we have to beef up the current hardware that we have in place? Or can we simply bring over those new users? Gives the IT team really time to plan it out and make those decisions. Once those decisions are made, then they can actually take and automate the process on their terms using Quest Migration Manager. So it helps move those users over directly from the newly acquired AD's environment over into the Quest environment. And then, of course, using Quest Migration Manager for Exchange, now we're actually able to bring over the folders and the emails, making the appropriate changes to those emails as the move takes place. I never realized when I first started learning about Migration Manager for Exchange how much actually is stored with each email that you have. So not only do you have your own address information, but you also have all the header information as well as all the trailer information that has which folder this was sitting in, who it came from, so on and so forth. Quest Migration Manager actually handles that for them, as well as holding on to the old address. So maybe in my old company where I was carol.fawcett@netpro.com, all my emails have that address associated with it. Migration Manager for Exchange, as it brings that email over, will actually change that to carol.fawcett@quest.com, or perhaps even change up the standard format to cfawcett@quest.com. So you can see how powerful Migration Manager can actually be. Not only can it bring everything over, but it can do it in a phased approach. For us here, for example, what we like to do is we like to get the sales folks over into the Exchange environment as quickly as possible, because so much does revolve around our Exchange environment. This is where Siebel, for example, sends out the quotes. So we need to get those sales folks over as quickly as possible, so not only can they sell their own products, like NetPro, for example, but they can also go ahead and sell the Quest products as well through the Salesforce system, which is Siebel here. So we bring over the sales team first. Usually it's being done right after quarter end, and that's when the accounting and finance team are so heavily impacted in quarter end activities. So we leave the accounting group off until the last possible moment, until the quarter is closed, when now they're freed up, ready to go. So you can see it allows you to actually schedule and phase it over for a more or a less customer impacting move. Not only does it do all the folders, but it also does all the public folders, handles their calendars, the calendar information, and of course the mailbox data, as we've already talked about. So a great example of 3 tools that first help you sync up 2 worlds to help in that cultural switch, gives the IT team time to organize their thoughts, decide what really needs to buy so that they don't overbuy and spend more than they need to, and then actually migrate in a phased manner. Okay, let's go on to slide 12 there, which now talks a lot about security. Intrust is a tool that I can honestly say when we went through our first audit, the auditors came to us and really said, I don't see where you're actually watching what's going on those file servers and in the Windows world and the AD world. I don't see where you're keeping track of your IT organization. And when you think about it, in fact, we had a situation where we had let an IT person go and it was overseas. And we had no idea that that person was being let go when they let go. It was on a Friday at 5 o'clock, and now I can feel all your eyes roll at the same time, because everybody knows you never let an IT person go on a Friday at 5 o'clock without notifying all of IS, because you know what's going to happen. Not only that, but it was in a country where you're not allowed to actually term them. You have to give them warning, time to think about it, a 24-hour period, and then you can cut their access. So, one of those really strange, European things that, you got to follow the rules on. Well, here nobody knew that person was being let go. And thank heavens for Intrust, because Intrust was out there set up so that it would alert us when any inappropriate change was made to the environment. And it would alert us via emails as well as sending out page alerts so that everyone knew when something was being done, that they could quickly take action and find out what was being done. In that scenario, Intrust actually alerted us to this individual going in and allowing or providing himself access to all of the exchange email to some of our most senior executives. And Intrust came out, alerted us to that change. We quickly called up HR to find out what was going on, find out what had happened, and we're able to cut access immediately at that point. But without Intrust, when you think of it, that person could have gone in, made those changes, gone into the logs on the actual file server itself, because those logs are not secured, could have gone in, deleted those records, and we would have never known that it actually had taken place. Intrust, however, not only alerting us, but puts it into a secure database where no one can make changes to it. So where they may be able to change it at the file server level and go into that file server and make those changes, the Intrust database itself cannot be modified. So we would have always been able to see that those changes had been made. The audit trail would have been there for us to actually see what had happened. Intrust, again, is one of those great tools that not only answers to the audit needs, but also answers to the operational needs. And this is a great example of that, where not only when the auditors came in and said, you need to ensure us that you're able to protect your environment from your own IT organization and be able to make sure that you're being alerted and collecting those audit logs so that we can validate them year over year. But you also need to make sure that it's something that's in operations mode that's happening every single month. Because when you think about it, an audit is not interested in what you did yesterday. It's interested in what you did over the past 12 months, 52 weeks of the year. So a great tool that certainly helps reduce down the risk of any kind of negative impact to the operations group through very fast detection and alerting of changes to those critical systems. Now that we have our systems secured, there's the next step up, which is, of course, making sure that they're performing at peak. I've always said that I never need a monitor to tell me that a system is down. The best monitor I have is the one I'm using right now to talk to all of you, and that's my phone, because the minute the system goes down, of course, the phone starts ringing and users start telling me that the Siebel system is offline. So I don't need a system to tell me that. What I do need, though, is I do need a monitor which helps me manage the solution itself, that makes sure that it's watching the entire environment from a holistic view, all the way from the end user, through the network, to the web services, to the web servers, to the database server, and back again. We talk so much about end user perception. It's really difficult when end users, call up and say, oh, performance is really poor today. How do you prove that out? How do you know whether performance is poor or not for that individual, for that region of the world, for that office even perhaps, or for the application impacting the entire user base who's using it? With a tool like Foglight, it really helps us drill in so that we can see that holistic view and see all those different aspects individually. So I can go in and actually see what's going on at the database level. The DBAs will start their day in Foglight to see not only how is it performing right now, but how did it perform over the last 16 hours when I wasn't in the office. So that's where they begin their day and see how the database is performing. The application managers, on the other hand, they want to know from the user perspective, how do the users perceive that the application has performing? So they will go into the FXM side and actually see the end user response times that each office has been receiving. Then if we get the call in from, Tom Smith, who says, hey, it looks like Siebel's really slow, using FXM, we can actually drill in to see what command he last executed and see what kind of information he was plugging in. Perhaps he was doing a blind query, and we could actually see that using FXM and contact him to say, yes, you must be feeling a very slow response time right now, considering that you did a blind query and have been looking for invoices since the beginning of time here at Quest of 2000 to right now in 2009. That will take time. How about taking and narrowing down that selection criteria, for example? So it gives us that nice clean view all the way down to the end user. The other thing it really helps us do is it helps us proactively monitor and watch for the conditions to be turning yellow, because that's truly when an IT organization needs to attack it. They don't need to attack it at the red level, because that's already where they're out of their seats and focusing on what's going wrong. They need to attack it at the yellow or the orange level. And those nice simple color code combinations certainly help us drill into exactly where it is that the issue is occurring. So no longer do we have the old war room mentality of get a DBA in the room, an application developer, a system administrator, a web administrator, the network team, and a few managers from each one of those organizations. If you think about it, that's 8 people that you're interrupting out of their day to bring into a room for a half hour to say, it looks like this application is having difficulty. Can you all go off and figure out what area it is that's having difficulty so that then we can attack it? You send those 8 people out of the room. 30 minutes later, now an hour later, they come back into that room and you know the look that they're going to give you. Not one of their environments are having problems, right? The database administrator looks at you and says, that must be the network team. The network team looks at the application developers and say, it must be the code. They're not using Toad again. The developers look, of course, across the table and said, it's got to be the OS. The system admins have to address it. Everyone's pointing at each other. With a tool like Foglight, because it's broken down into those silos to give that entire view of an environment, you can look at it and directly say, no, Mr. Database Administrator, it looks like you're having trouble as it's the orange button is sitting over the database symbol there, and you're the one that needs to attack it. So now you're no longer going out to the individuals, but instead you're going directly to Foglight to see what the issue is, and that person alone is addressing it. Or perhaps proactively, they've already begun addressing it, because Foglight also gives us that ability to go ahead and alert the right individual when something starts to go wrong. Wonderful tool to certainly give back time to all the other people who don't need to address an issue. Helps us look at trending to see how things have trended in the past. My latest motto is don't come in here and ask for any more CPU memory, disk space, or anything else associated with hardware-wise unless you have a Foglight trend report that shows me over the last 6 months that utilization's been going up in that area, and only hardware will address it. Once I see those reports and I say, okay, let's go ahead and purchase whatever it may be. For us, for example, we actually used it to justify a brand new SAN because we could see that our 5-year-old SAN was struggling with I/O. And everyone knows that, after 5 years, the SAN striping is no longer present, and it's pretty much just overutilized. Once we put in the new SAN, we were actually able to see and present to management through Foglight trend reports the I/O, how it had raised up almost to an 85% level, and then dropped that back down when the new SAN came in, back down to a 30% level. We also use it even when we put application changes in. How wonderful it is for us to go back out to the business when they've been complaining about a certain area of an application saying that response time is so poor. We're actually able now to make that change, go into Foglight and show those reports to show how we've taken response time for end users from perhaps 2 minutes down to 3 seconds. So great story to show not only that we're being proactive in monitoring and managing the environment and meeting the service levels that the users would like, but also able to show how the changes we're making are increasing the end user satisfaction overall. And then, of course, as we talked about when we first started, changes will take place that are inappropriate in an environment. Objects get deleted, emails are accidentally lost, rights are accidentally changed, and the only way to recover quickly is through tools like our Recovery Manager suite, the Recovery Manager for Active Directory, Recovery Manager for Exchange, and one that's not even listed on here, which is the Recovery Manager for SharePoint. How wonderful it is that all these tools have near the same type of user interface. They're all wizard-based. They allow the system admins, the AD admins, or the Exchange admins to quickly undo using the logs, back down to the level, returning the systems to an appropriately, or restore the environment to where it was working appropriately. It can recover, like I was mentioning before, individual directory objects or object attributes without taking down the domain controllers themselves. So again, it's just like when you hit the back button in PowerPoint or Word, it simply reverses out the last command. And both of those tools, you know, are unfortunately tools that people don't know they need them until they need them. So these are tools that, you know, I always encourage the prospects that I talk to look towards them because, again, changes get made. You know, in IT, we bring in a lot of consultants in and out of our doors, especially in the area of AD and exchange management. You know, and those folks come in and they have policies and procedures and processes that are related perhaps to the last company they used, and that we may not use those here at Quest. So changes can get made. We bring them in, we interview them, we believe they're at a certain level, we give them, we put them in the right group, providing them the security rights we believe that they can handle, but accidents happen. And so you want to be able to have tools that can quickly back out the last command that was made, or even, you know, 10 commands back, so that you return those applications to fully functioning. You know, and it's not just Quest. There's a ton out on our website of different companies like Land America and colleges and Main Freight and even Johns Hopkins who have seen the benefits of the Quest tools. I really encourage you to contact your Lifeboat partner as well as go out to the Quest site itself, and you'll be able to see those examples of other companies who have really used our tools. As Dan Twing from the EMA told us, you know, IT organizations are under intense pressure to reduce expenses while continuing to improve the strategic value of IT by providing flexible, dynamic, and efficient IT services that drive business success. Again, I mean, when you think about it, you have someone who's saying, reduce your budget, yet provide us with more. You know, it's just a complete difficult challenge that you put an IT organization in. But just like EMA, we believe that organizations will increasingly turn to automation as a means of doing more with less through tools like ARS and like Password Manager and like CAS, authentication services, and Toad. You can see all the tools that we just got done talking about really help in automating the most mundane and repetitive tasks, giving IT managers the ability to focus on the business. So as they're being asked to do more with less, the Quest tools are there to help them do just that. And I think this is a great slide which shows so many of the different companies, and I'm proud to say that even Quest Software is there. Of the tools that we have, we use, I think the last time I did this, we use about 60% to 65% of the tools that we sell, we use internally. And the rest that we don't use are simply because we don't have those applications in our house. In our data center, you know, we are an Oracle shop. We have a little bit of SQL Server as well, but for example, we do not have any DB2. We run Oracle applications for the financials and for Siebel, but we don't run any of the PeopleSoft applications. So the tools we don't use is not because we don't want to use them, it's simply because we can't use them. So just like these companies, we are seeing the same exact value. We're working with R&D to help look at the tools as they're being in their beta, so that we actually see them in beta mode, we test them in beta mode, and we help R&D finalize their QA process before it actually goes out to our customers. So a great story of how Quest is truly drinking their own champagne on this one to make sure that it's ready for sale. And I believe that's it for me. Don, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Carol. We appreciate that presentation. That was outstanding. So let's talk about a little bit more about how Quest can help you and help your customer. A lot of this has to do, of course, with understanding your customer's environment, and Carol's just given us so much insight into all the areas of IT that really could use help with tools that can automate their processes. And a way to identify opportunities is to listen for keywords in all of those areas that Carol just discussed. Of course, you can engage with Lifeboat and with Quest Software, and we are more than happy to partner together to find the exact right solution to meet your customers' needs. And of course, Quest is there to help scope the projects and do the heavy lifting, so to speak. So if you can just identify those keywords and uncover the opportunity, Quest and Lifeboat is more than happy to carry the ball with you from that point. There are some great tools for you out on the web. One of them is the Quest eBook. You can contact your Lifeboat account manager to get the link to the e-guide, but this guide will walk you through the majority of the Quest solutions and give you information on demand that you need to help identify the correct solution for your customer. And coming up soon is the Quest Experts Conference. And I just want to offer an invite on behalf of Quest to all of you. The Technology Experts Conference is presented by Quest Software and supported by Microsoft and industry leaders. Tech 2009 is designed to deliver powerful Exchange, Active Directory, and identity-related education for the experts by the experts. Tech 2009 includes in-depth, highly technical content, one-on-one access to industry leaders, valuable networking opportunities, career advancement possibilities. It's an amazing training opportunity for both you and your customers, and there is still time to register for the Las Vegas event in from March 22nd to 25th. So check out www.tech2009.com to get the full details for that one. Now, if you take advantage of all of the information that was shared today and you go out and you sell Quest solutions, even in these challenging times, you can be all of the things on this slide to your customers, and moreover, you will help yourself to grow your business. I have listed here my contact information. Also on the line with us is Pamela Jorgensen, who is Quest North American Regional Partner Manager. You can contact either Pamela or me, but Pamela can certainly fill you in on all the program details for partners. We are at our Q&A portion now, and I do have at least one question here. So Carol, you hooked Joe Young right at the beginning on ARS.
Wonderful.
And the question from Joe is, what is the ratio of license dollars to consulting dollars to implement Active Role Server?
You know, that would be a hard one for me to answer. That would almost be one that would need to go back to Lifeboat or someone on the sales side, because, of course, you know, we don't pay anything for our licenses here at Quest because I get it all for free, so I have the, you know, wonderful ability to do that. I will tell you that for ARS, I always tell folks to do things in a phased approach. In fact, we just did a conference last week where we talked a lot about ARS. And what I encouraged, I was with 5 different customers at the time, and what I encouraged them to do is take a slow approach to it. So get ARS up running for your most basic of systems. So get it so that it's hooked, you know, pick your single source system and get them to integrate HR or whatever system that is with AD and email, and get them to learn that, understand how that works, and then allow them to expand it out to 1 or 2 of their applications. Let them see how that integrates in. And it's actually a very smooth implementation when you do it that way, because they learn as they go, and it helps really reduce down the amount of PSO time at the end you would actually need. Or you could turn around and say, you know, I'm going to use PSO through the whole process because perhaps my company just doesn't have the head count to do it. But still, that phased approach lets you get it in, Make sure that HR or whoever has that single source of record understands the impact to the AD environment. Once you get those processes working well, then you can expand it down to the rest of your applications, the databases, the systems, you know, security groups, the network. You can really take it all over the map.
Okay, thank you, Carol. We appreciate that. I don't see any other questions. Joe, thank you for that one. So from everybody here at Lifeboat, Carol, we thank you very much for the presentation today. For each of you out there who participated in this event, I want to say thank you from Lifeboat and from Quest Software. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Feel free to reach out for any need you have regarding Quest Software. Have a great day.
Thank you.